and description of Kurukshetra war. Okay, killing of the demons and end of Kurukshetra war. There's 6 verses. So it's a small description, a few descriptions by the Lord, by Uddhava about the Lord. And then there's another 8 verses, 16 to 23, which describes Krishna and Dwarka. And then the Moksha Lila, the destruction of the Yadu clan. So we will finish those and we will read the Sanskrit and we will explain. So just as usual, I had given a small sort of homework on the last part of what we discussed. I said that we can try to get some pastimes, read on the kidnapping of Rukmini, on the Princess Nagnajiti, Krishna winning her hand, then the stealing of the Parijata flower, then the Lord Krishna, he killed the Narakasur demon. So I hope that you've made some research and you've read a few things. So we will not dwell on it. You know, I hope that the homework has been done. At least you have read. So we will just go to text 10 now today. Okay. So I will read the Sanskrit. That's okay, Prabhuji. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Do your seva.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Kalamagada salvadin anikairundhata param ajighanat swayam dhivyam swapungsam teja adishat. Kalayavana, the king of Magad, and Shalva attacked the city of Mathura. But when the city was circled by their soldiers, the Lord refrained from killing them personally, just to show the power of his own men. Purport. After the death of Kamsa, when Mathura was encircled by the soldiers of Kalayavana, Jarasandha and Shalva. So, the Lord seemingly fled from the city. Qu'est-il arrivé? Code ça, non? Sorry. There was a noise and it startled us. Sorry about this. So the Lord seemingly fled from the city, and thus he is known as Ranchor, or one who fled from fighting. Actually, the fact was that the Lord wanted to kill them through the agency of his own men, devotees like Muchukunda and Bhima. Kalayavana and the king of Magad were killed by Muchukunda and Bhima, respectively. The king of Magad was actually Jarasandha. Magad is the old city of Bihar, which was Patliputra, which is considered a great place of learning and so on and so forth. In the olden days, it was a very powerful kingdom. And Jarasandha was a very powerful king. And Jarasandha, he attacked Krishna's Dwarka, Krishna's Mathura over 17 times. So, but then Balaramji had suggested, why do we just kill them all in one go? And Krishna said, no, he is doing our work. So he is attacking us, and he is therefore collaborating with all the other demons, bringing them out to fight us. And then we kill them slowly, bit by bit. So it's a very nice policy. So the relationship of the Lord with his devotees is a very happy one. Actually, the Lord descended at the request of Brahma in order to kill all indesirables of the world. But to divide the share of glory, he sometimes engaged his devotees to take the credit. The battle of Kurukshetra was designed by the Lord himself, but just to give credit to his devotee Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhava savya sachin. he played the part of the charioteer, while Arjuna was given the chance to play the fighter and thus become the hero of the battle of Kurukshetra. So nimitta matram bhava savya sachin, just savya sachin. You become the cause of the nimitta karana, means you become the immediate visible cause of their death, but everything has been arranged by me. They're going to die anyway. So I'm giving you the credit for it. So what he wants to do himself by his transcendental plans, he executes through his confidential devotees. That is the way of the Lord's mercy towards his pure unalloyed devotees. So what we can gather from this very nice purport is Krishna, he can do everything by himself, but he leave it to his devotees to effect his plans, so they are glorified. And we know the case of the Kurukshetra war. Krishna had decided all of them to be dead by casting his glance on them, by frowning like that. He actually killed them by his very desire. But he let this nimitta matram or nimitta karana, immediate cause, to be seen as Arjuna killing them. So he gets the credit. And this is the explanation in this verse. So if Krishna wants something to be done, I don't think we can stop it. Krishna wants a Sankirtan movement to carry on. So is there any possibility that the Sankirtan movement will be stopped? No. But then he gives the credit to his devotees to expand the Sankirtan movement, to execute the Sankirtan movement, to execute the different programs and projects of the Sankirtan movement. But he has already decided it to be so. So it's a very important concept as devotees that we don't become like people who try to become controllers or think that we have better plans, we have such and such great ideas. But within the limit of the mission of the spiritual master, which in itself is aligned with the desire of the Supreme Lord, we can make individual changes, a spontaneous approach, because devotional service is individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. But the overall plan, within that large plan or large scheme of things, we have a possibility of exercising our own individuality and spontaneity in devotional service. So just because Krishna had arranged for all of them to be killed, doesn't mean at all that Arjuna could not use his individual prowess, his individual abilities, his individual choice in the manner. So in the visionary idea, the war was to be won by the devotees, by the Pandavas and Krishna. But how it was going to be effected was left to Arjuna. So he gets the credit, right? So text 11. Sambaram dividam bhanam muram balbalam evacha anyang sadanta vakradin abadit kangsa ghatavat. O kings like Sambara, Divida, Bhana, Mura, Balbala, and many other demons such as Dantavakra. Some he killed himself and some he caused to be killed by others. So again, same principle Prabhupada is explaining. All right, some of the demons he killed himself and some he caused to be killed by others. And sometimes even by Sri Baladev or by his other devotees. Like Jarasandha was killed by Bhima, and so on. So text 12. Atha te bhatrin putranam pakshayopaditam ripan chachala bhus kurukshetram yesham apatatan bhalai. When then, O Vidura, the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. So the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, which is the Pandavas, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. But all those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake at it. So there was many powerful kings. And okay, let me ask a question here. when you have many powerful kings, all in different provinces, what is the scheme of the Lord? Very important question, this. Okay, what is the scheme of the Lord to actually have control over them? What does he do? Say, for example, the Lord is not here. What is a Vedic arrangement? Anyone? Sharika, you're with us? Chitraputra, Prabhu. We can't see you, but you have your arms up. Come on, speak.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yes. So the scheme of the Lord to be able to control all these is to if only the kings are performing, they are being let's say they are performing their duties in the course of Dharma, performing their duties in the course of Dharma. In that way, the Lord can control them. They will do things in accordance as kings, being there for Krishna and acting in the welfare or for the benefit.
Yes. Yes. But how does he put it into action? You've read it so many times. When you read the Holy Scriptures, it's often said that the such and such king conquered all over the world. Such and such powerful king, by the piety, by the prowess, they conquered all over the world. The idea is
one way and right. Giving advice to them here. That right. Is what. Thank you.
Yes, the effective way he does it is actually all these powerful kings are there, but the person on top, who's the most powerful king, is a rascal, Duryodhan. So therefore, all the other kings act like thieves and robbers, and they act outside the purview of the Vedic culture. So what the Lord does, he removes the most powerful one and replace it. That's why they have the Aswamedha Yajna. That's why they have the Rajasuya Yajna. Those Aswamedha Yajnas and the Rajasuya Yajnas, the Aswamedha Yajna is where they send the challenge horse. And they see that all the provisional kings in all the different states and small kingdoms will accept the authority of the one king who is the most powerful. And how does he become the most powerful? Either by his devilish plans or by being a very pious, great personality like Swayambhuva Manu, like Parikshit Maharaj, like Yudhishthir Maharaj, like Bharaj Bharat. So all these stories of these powerful kings, they actually become very, very powerful, and they actually impose some kind of a secondary rule or subjugation on all the other kings. So all the other kings have to accept the authority of that one most powerful emperor. So when he says he conquers all over the world, he factually does conquer all over the world, but he doesn't conquer all over the world by killing and pillaging. Is by the kings accept to submit to his authority. And his authority becomes supreme because he actually follows the rule of Kshatriya Dharma properly, and he enforces the rule of Kshatriya Dharma properly on the other kings. So when he sent the challenge horses, so the provincial kings who accept his authority, they let the horses pass. And when they don't, they stop the horses. So then the king will either come with an army, will do 4 types of what you call management principles. Bheda Dana Danda Sama. He will do either negotiate with them, Sama, or they will say, look, I can accept to be under your jurisdiction and under your rule, but you have to give something for the satisfaction of my kingdom or my kinsmen or my treasury. So Sama, a dana. Or we can negotiate a peace deal, Sama. And if the king doesn't accept this, dana, Sama, then Bheda, or sometimes he will divide and rule. And he will go to that kingdom, he will take some of the powerful people on his side. Then the king will be weakened. And then he will have to submit to the authority of the more pious king. But then when that doesn't happen, then he used danda, which is punishment. Either he will conquer and he will forcibly take it and he will subjugate the king and he will put another provision to it. So that's a system of Vedic management. Dana, Bheda, Dana, Sama. Bheda, Dana, Danda, Sama. 4 things. So it's like that. I put it here. Bheda. Okay. Then Dana. Dana, so I wrote it wrong. Bheda, Dana, Sama. And Danda. Right. Punishment. It's 4 rules. Bheda means divide and rule. Dana means give something to receive something. Sama means to negotiate. And Danda means to actually punish. So he will subjugate them like that. And then he does a Rajasuya Yajna if he has a lot of riches. By performance of his Rajasuya Yajna, he establishes his supremacy as a spiritual king. So that's when they say that all these kings were conquered under the rule of one emperor. That's how it was done. So here it is said all those kings were so great and strong that the earth seemed to shake as they traversed the war field. They were so powerful. And if they become independent and they become tyrannical, then they will actually cause a lot of suffering to the populace. Like you see now, as people manipulate votes by giving out sense gratification, they want to promote a materialistic culture, and then they get what they want, and then they go and mess with the population. They impose tax, they have so many useless wars that is being pushed by American empire, which is the empire is run by a demoniac president, which is like a king. And then he allows cow slaughter, he allows abortion, he allows all of that. So can you imagine, even in the present situation of nasty politics, if there was a Vedic ruler in charge of America, like America is imposing its rule all over the world, but it's demoniac rule. So you can see that. Okay, so that's why how you see it in the essence. So we go to text 13. Sakarna dusha sanaso balana kumandrapakena hatashiyayusam suyodhanam sanucharam sayanam bhagnoru muryam nanananda bhasyam. Duryodhana was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacy of ill advice given by Karna. So in relationship to what I've explained, right, it follows this verses follows in the same line of explanation that Duryodhan, he was bereft of his fortune and duration of life because of the intricacies of ill advice. He was not advised properly. He did not have proper spiritual advisors, and his advisors were like, you know, his uncle Sakuni, Karna, Prabhupada saying Karna, Dushashan, and Sobala. When he lay on the ground with the followers, his thighs broken. Although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. So even Lord Krishna, he allowed the Gadayut, the last day of the war. Duryodhan was fighting with Bhima, and Bhima disregarded the rule of war and hid below his waist and broke his thigh. So then his back was broken, his thighs were broken. Although he was powerful, the Lord was not happy to see the scene. Even then, the Lord has compassion because the Lord has no hatred for anyone. The Lord doesn't hate anyone. Even as Paramatma, he says, Name dveshvestina priya, samoham sarva bhuteshu, I'm equal to all. So here is the fall of Duryodhana in the purport. The leading son of Dhritarashtra was not pleasing to the Lord, although he was on the side of the Arjuna. And it was he who advised Bhima how to break the thighs of Duryodhana while the fight was going on. Right? And at that point, when the fight was going on, that was the last day of the pilgrimage of Lord Balaram, who had gone on pilgrimage. And he had come and he saw on the last day of the war, and he saw that situation. And Duryodhana was more or less his martial arts disciple. He was his disciple. And he did not like what he said. But then Krishna didn't make any comment, and he disregarded, the whole thing, and he left. So the wrongdoer is, so he said, the Lord is constrained to award punishment upon the wrongdoer, but he is not happy to award such punishment because the Lord is naturally merciful. Why would he want to see any conditioned souls suffer? But the suffering, but the suffering is necessary because to make sure that things run nicely. And he's not happy to award such punishment because the living entity is originally his part and parcel. So he's harder than the thunderbolt for the wrongdoer and softer than the rose for the faithful. The wrongdoer is misled by bad associates and by ill advice, which is against the established principles of the Lord's order. And thus he becomes subject to punishment. The surest path to happiness is to live by the principle laid down by the Lord and not obey established laws which are enacted in the Vedas and Puranas for the forgetful. So we have to actually follow the rules. The modern government system always passing new rules and new rules and new rules, and everyone flout the new rules. But the Vedic system is the rules established according to Niti Shastra, the rule of governance by the Kshatriyas. So that's how it is. So this is in conjunction with Vedic rule. But now people are passing laws all the time, which is not the right thing to do. Okay, text 14. Kiyan bhuvayang shapituru bharo yandrona bhishmarjuna bhimma mulli astadashakso hiniko madangshair aste balandur visaham yadhunam. After the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of the earth, great burden, 18 Okshohinis has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Vadu dynasty born of myself, which may be more unbearable burden. So yes, he got rid of 18 Okshohinis, this phalanx of armies, were got rid of in the Kurukshetra war. But then he's still saying, but there's such great strength and powerful kings, powerful personalities who are born of himself. 16,000 wives, 10 children in each, 160,000, and grandchildren, putran, pautran, so on. So they are actually an unbearable burden. So he has to also take care of that. Yes, Sarika Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. While you were explaining the concept of Krishna's the Ashwamedha sacrifice and the purpose, I was just thinking of something because Krishna consciousness movement is meant to be like a kind of a model of the Vedic teachings. Of course, Krishna consciousness is a little bit different from the Vedic teachings in general. But I was just thinking about the statement you made about how Krishna does not directly kill everybody. Was being asked why it's just not, why Balaram is asking why not just kill everybody. at once. But he said he just removed. You mentioned about removing the leader, and we see that in our Krishna consciousness management, sometimes the leader is removed just to create a kind of a sanity in a kind of an environment or in a temple or something like that. I was just going to ask, can that still be applied in our today Krishna consciousness management system? And if so, yeah, if yes, is it possible to do? Because unfortunate, most quite unfortunate, our Krishna consciousness movement also is being also like kind of a democratic system, so to speak. It's not like the monarchical system. So from looking from this perspective, is this something that is practicable in our model of Krishna consciousness movement, leadership and management?
Well, I can't say for sure, because I would go by what Prabhupada established. You see, we have kind of wandered off from the path of what Srila Prabhupada has established for us in terms of management of ISKCON. And Srila Prabhupada gave incredible authority and power to the temple presidents. And Prabhupada said they were the most important service in our ISKCON movement, is the temple presidents. And because from the temple, so many things would happen. But I think that's where we wandered off. That's all I can say. But now the rule of, you see, the Vedic management system is in a system of Devi Varnashram or Varnashram, where rules of ashrama and varna are obeyed by one and all. Now, ISKCON has a small microscopic cosmic situation, being a small unit where we still have to obey the government laws and rules, and we still have to buy our food from the shops and the supermarkets, and it's still, and we operate within a system that is ruled. So we cannot have our own rules and system at this point in time, because we do not wield enough authority and power to arrange everything ourselves. So therefore we are coexisting within a system that is of demoniac by nature. And therefore all our work that we do, if we don't have the right consciousness, will be contaminated, and the fruits of our work, for example, if you're working as a telecommunication engineer, or you're working as a computer person or an accountant, then you're working in a company. And your work, the fruit of your work, the effort of your work may be directed towards, mundane, sinful and demoniac things. So that's another thing altogether. Now, in terms of how our ISKCON management is to run, I think we should go by what Prabhupada did. I think that Prabhupada had a great system of management. And he had a president, and he had a vice president who was like the housekeeper. Temple commander, the vice president was making sure that all departments are running. Temple commander was like the housekeeper. And the temple president was like the PR person trying to promote everything else. And within the control of the temple president, he had different department heads, Sankirtan, DT, so on and so forth, and as the temple expands, that I think mostly we've done away with this. And I think that is a little bit sad. We've done away, in some temples that have departments running, like the Sankirtan department with a Sankirtan leader, life membership department with a life membership leader, Sankirtan department with a man Sankirtan and a women Sankirtan, a cook who takes care of the cooking for the temple, a head pujari who takes care of the deity worship, and so on and so forth. I think that system is a perfect system. I personally have an experience with it. We've lived in temples who were run like this, but people do away with the department heads because I don't know what reason.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the answer. I get this. Please, before we go forward, you give 4 ways by which the king administer the rule. You gave 4 names and you typed it in the. I was trying to type the direct English meaning of the words you use, but I think I lost it somewhere. So you said better it means use negotiation.
Let me share. Let me open a file and I'll share it.
Okay.
You have disabled me screen sharing.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
So if you look at it, every single management is based on these four principles. Every single management. There's no management outside that. If you really want to know any of the new management theories, they're all based on these, because these are Vedic things. Say, for example, you want to create a consensus so that everyone agrees on everything. That's Sama, negotiate a peaceful situation, right? Some people want to get some power and some position and to be able to cooperate with you. That's Dana, right? You know, someone is not cooperating, they want to become Sankirtan leader, you're the temple president, so you give something, okay, Prabhu, I give you that service, but we work together. So that's Dana, right? And someone is formed a power base and he has 5 people and they are stacked up against someone else, right? You try to get 2 people out of there by offering them something, right? Or by negotiating something. And then you punish the others too. So you destroy the power base of the guy. So Dana and Bheda. So Danda, you use a stick. Yeah, it's a very cruel. And ISKCON also is going on this same thing. And in the Kami world, same thing is going on. Do you agree with me?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Same thing is going on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Madhuvan.
Sorry for coming late for the class. I'm so sorry about that. One of my very close friends was burying his mother some few kilometers away. So I just came back this morning now. So sorry. So my question or my comment, can we then say that Putin is using stick on Ukraine in order to subjugate them? Or how do you
Same
see it,
situation
Prabhu?
has to be applied. The same thing has to be applied. So you can have someone negotiate a peace deal, or someone wants something to stop the war. He wants Donetsk, he wants this, he wants that. And, it's the same thing. They have to do the same thing. Okay, we can move on so that we don't. Okay, so I'll read the purport here. It is a wrong theory. So I'm reading the purport to text 14, and we have to go a little bit faster. It is a wrong theory that due to the increase in population, the world becomes overburdened, and therefore there are wars and other annihilating processes. India consistently had millions of people on its. It's not that India had any less persons. India always had 1 billion people living on that park. That's why they were prosperous. They control 35% of the GDP of the world, or even more. So consistently, they had that number of people. It's not that India is overpopulated now. This is all nonsense propaganda. If they didn't have that many people, how come they had so many millions of soldiers? You see? So the earth is never overburdened. The heaviest mountains and oceans on the face of the earth hold more living entities than there are human beings, and they are not overburdened. If a census were taken of all living beings on the surface of the earth, certainly it would be found that the number of humans is not even 5% of the total number of living beings. Look at Prabhupada's angle of vision. Humans are not even 5% of living entities on the surface of the earth. This is a very important purport. So if the birth rate of human beings is increasing, then the birth rate of other living beings is increasing proportionately. The birth rate of lower animals and beasts is far greater than that of human beings. So sometimes when they say it is overburdened, they look at it from the point of so many animals all over the place, so many birds. I mean, in my yard, there's so many birds. I don't know where they come from every day. So the birth rate, so he said there are an adequate arrangement for food for all living entities all over the earth by the order of the Supreme Lord. Because the Lord, he makes a plan which is called sthanam, maintenance, which is one of the subject matter of the Bhagavatam. Sthanam, he creates a situation by which some living entities will eat others, and there's always a balance. The ecological system that is created of jivo jivasya jivanam, one living entity is food for another. It's a self-regulated system that he has created, and male and female get together and procreated. It is a self-regulating system, and their livelihoods and their longevity. It's a self-regulated system called sthanam, in the process of sthanam, maintenance. So the Lord has made adequate arrangement for food for all living beings all over the earth by the order of the Supreme Lord. And he can arrange more and more if there's actually a disproportionate increase of living entities. So it's never overburdened. What is therefore overburdened is, we'll see. Therefore, there's a question of an increase in population causing a burden. No, not at all. The earth becomes overburdened due to dharma gnani. When they become irreligious, then they becomes or irregular discharge of the Lord's desire. Then the Lord appeared to curb the increase of the power of the miscreants. That's what he does. So when Lord Krishna appeared, there had been a sufficient increase in miscreants who had violated right? The desire of the Lord. The material creation is meant for fulfillment or the desire of the Lord. And his desire is that the conditioned soul who are unfit to enter the kingdom of God have the chance to improve their conditions for entering. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance. So the whole universe is created for the living entities to get a chance for liberation. Therefore, although there are maybe great increase in population on the surface of the earth, if the people are exactly in line with God consciousness and are not miscreants, such a burden on the earth is source of pleasure for her. So Mother Bhumi, Earth planet, wants to maintain her children because she's the mother. Like a mother, she may have 3 kids or 10 kids. The kids are not a burden. But if the kids are rascals, then they're a burden. So similarly, Mother Earth, it is said that Mother Earth cannot tolerate the weight of a liar, can tolerate the weight of a mountain, but not the weight of a liar, for example. So many things are there, okay? So Prabhupada also talks about there's 2 kinds of burdens in the next part of the purport. There's a burden of the beast and burden of love. The burden of beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is a source of pleasure. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the burden of love very practically. He said that the burden of the husband on the young wife, the burden of the child on the lap of the mother, the burden of wealth on the businessman, although actually burdens from the viewpoint of heaviness or sources of pleasure, and the absence of such burdensome objects, one may feel the burden of separation, which is heavier to bear than the actual burden of love. So, if you love your wife and you're separated from her, you will feel the pain. You rather have the burden because of your love. So it's a burden of love. You carry that burden of love. So it is saying, so similarly, there is a burden of love, and there's a burden of having a lot of, nonsensical individuals or persons or animals or powerful kings to control or to take care of them. That's a burden, which is a heavy burden, but it's not a burden of love. So Prabhupada is looking at it completely different way. So individuals on this planet Earth, they're not a burden if they are properly executing the Dharma duties. Okay, so when he referred, I'm reading the last line, when he referred to the unbearable heaviness on the earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of their separation. Srila Jiva Goswami confirmed this. So they were a burden, the Yadu, they were a burden, but they were not a burden on the earth planet because they were actually righteous. They were demigods, and there were different important personalities who were born to serve the Lord. But it would become a burden of their separation. So Srila Jiva Goswami confirmed this. So because of the burden of love that he had with them, he decided that better to remove them. Let them go back to where they have to be. Otherwise, it would be unbearable for them. Because the Lord had given an opportunity for such incredible pastimes that with their presence, it would be impossible for them to bear. Now, one example we are studying right here, the example of Uddhava. Krishna told Uddhava, don't follow me, don't come with me. It will be too difficult for you to see when I depart. But he did. He followed the Lord. The Lord gave him Bhagavad Gita, gave him a mission to go to Badrinath and be there to explain his pastime to the future generation of devotees. That was a burden of love. It's not that the Lord became a burden in his absence or Uddhava became a burden for everyone else. No, it was a burden of love. So can you imagine if he had millions of Dwarkavasins in this situation, it would cause chaos and pain for them. Just take that multiplied by millions. So he rather have one Uddhava and the rest of them go, or a few of them stay. It's very nicely presented. Prabhupada's so smart, isn't it? Completely different angle. Never thought about this, did you? Did we? That he removed the burden because they were just powerful? No, it's a burden of love. Interesting point. And every time when we hear in Bhagavatam classes, we think oh, they'll be a burden, they'll be powerful, they'll destroy, they can cause problem. But look at Jiva Goswami's explanation. It's a question of love. So Krishna actually removed them because he couldn't see that. So there's two kinds, obviously. Some of them may become dharmaglani. Some of them may become irreligious minded and cause troubles. But mostly they could not bear the separation of the Lord. So therefore he dispatched them in a way so that they won't have that situation here. That's a burden of love. Quite incredible. Please note that point.
Hare Krishna,
Okay.
Prabhu.
Yes, sir.
With respect to the Mother Earth also, it's the burden of separation is going to miss them because we are pious, and then to miss that whole population at once, it's a big burden to have. I don't know if it's correct, Prabhu.
Because what? The burden to her, if they were pious, yeah, that's also there. If they stray from the path of religious duty, they can become a deeper burden. That could be a secondary point, a moot point. But the main point here is that it was a burden of love for Krishna to tolerate that. He couldn't, so he dispatched them. But also it is said that it will be a bigger burden. But why in this purport Prabhupada goes on that angle? Because having all these people is not a burden for Mother Earth. But it could become a burden. So read that purport carefully.
You want me to read it?
Look what it says here. The large number of family members born of Lord Krishna counted. Shalika Prabhu, you can ask these devotees why they keep coming and going. The large number of family members born of Lord Krishna counted to some millions and was certainly a great increase in the population of the earth. But because of all of them were expansions of the Lord himself by his plenary transcendental plenary expansions, they were a source of great pleasure for the earth. So when the Lord referred to them in connection with the burden on the earth, he had in mind the imminent disappearance from the earth. All the members of the family of Lord Krishna were incarnations of different demigods, because the demigods take part in his pastimes, and they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. When you referred to the unbearable heaviness on the earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of their separation, which would be unbearable for them. So Srila Jiva Goswami confirmed this inference. So quite interesting. Let me see what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has to say about this. Let me share this with you. Okay. So this is yes, this is the burden of the, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation here. The verse explained why the Krishna did not rejoice. The great burden of the earth considered of Akshihinis, etc. The Sandhi of Shapita and Uru in poetic license. In composition, lack of the consideration of the secondary elements. should be tolerated. The burden of the earth was reduced only a little because the intolerable strength of the Lord's portions, such as Pradyumna, remains. But the burden of the earth is not produced by the abundance of oceans and mountains, but rather by the prominence of irreligious persons. You see? So the earth decreased such irreligious persons. The Lord decreased. One cannot also say that the Yadus were irreligious. So how were they a burden? Since they are eternal associates of the Lord. This is understood from the following verse. Brahmanyanam vadanyanam nityam vritopasevitam. Viprashapa katham avud vrishninang kshetra chetasam. How could the Brahmanas curse the Vrishnis, who were always respectful to the Brahmanas, charitable and inclined to serve seniors, and whose mind were always absorbed in Krishna? This is quoted from 11th canto. Absorbed in Krishna while sleeping, sitting, walking, speaking, playing, bathing, and eating. They did not know that they existed. They were so absorbed in Krishna. Their material life was not there. The burden of two types, suffering and happiness. Prabhupada puts it at burden of love. The first is difficult to tolerate, and the second is easy to tolerate. Example of the second type of burden are the lover carrying his female lover, the affectionate mother to the child, the merchant carrying his wealth on his head. You see, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Prabhupada has used this and he's expanded his purport. You see? But Prabhupada put it in more modern terms, right? And then he says, like that. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Very, very sweet, very nectarine. Yes, everyone with me? Text 15. Okay. Mito yadai sang bhavita vivadho madvat madhatam ravilochananam naisham vadopayatyang tatonyo mai udyate antar dadate swayam sma. When they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, and their eyes red like copper because of drinking, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, the incidents will take place. So he said, I have arranged a quarrel among themselves. They will be intoxicated, and they will only, then only will they disappear. So because the expansions of the Lord, they cannot be squashed by someone else. They have to do it themselves among themselves. So Prabhuji, just fix your, what do you call, the phone on a place. All this movement actually giving me a headache. I'm also having a headache because of this flippering thing at the back. This lights concentrating for hours and hours on the computer giving these classes is actually a difficult thing. It's not a joy. It's a joy, the class, but the whole body thing is.
I want to adjust my curtain also because the light is off. And I want to adjust my curtain also. I was reluctant to stand up because the light is off. The light is off. So I want to adjust my.
But especially like that's why I was speaking from experience when I said, then everyone keep moving. You know, you keep adjusting your screen and you keep, you know, and then you go in and out. It's very disturbing. So I have a class, Bhagavad Gita class, I'm giving on Thursday. And there's about 40, 50 people in it, new people. But then all the screens are very small. The screens are very small. So it's very interesting. The screens are very small. So I don't even notice who is there in the class. Because the screens are small. then it doesn't disturb me so much. But then I asked one devotee, were you in the class? He said, yeah, Prabhu, I've followed all the classes, but now I'm on the 4th class I gave. I didn't even notice who is there. So, but when you have only a small group, then this is very important. It just if you put all the small screen, you just see, it's like all the 25 screens all small, and I don't even notice who is there. And then there's a second, you have to flip. So it doesn't disturb you so much. But yeah, it's important that we stay fixed also. So, okay, sorry about this, Prabhu. I don't mean to be imposing on you. I'm your servant. So, so here, let us read the purport. The Lord and his associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. You see? So the Lord has to arrange the appearance and disappearance of himself and those who are his plenary expansions. And it is said that the adus came from him, so they were his plenary expansions, transcendental plenary expansions. So how can material nature vanquish them? Very interesting, eh? Salika Prabhu is very interesting, isn't it? How can material nature vanquish them? So he has to arrange that. There's so much deep philosophy in all of this here. So no one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of natural death by the laws of nature. Right? So only means, therefore, for their disappearance was make show of a fight among themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to. So there was a pastime. The so-called fights are very interesting points. Please note these points down. So, you really understand the whole, tattva behind it. Okay. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for the fighting. So just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by the family affection, so when Arjuna starts to see the problems of having to kill his own kinsmen and so on and so forth, it was very disturbing. He was very disturbed. He saw sons, grandsons, brothers, fathers-in-laws, fathers, friends, grandfathers, teachers, acharyas. So he was very disturbed. So Krishna had to arrange some kind of an illusion. So when Krishna says, behold the Kurus, he actually cast an illusion upon Krishna. And so therefore, same thing here. Then thus the Bhagavad Gita was, so the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. That was the Lord's desire. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize the individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord. And this cooperation of the devotees with the Lord makes a perfect sense of the Lord pastimes. So it's not that they would be against about what Krishna had arranged. They would acquiesce to it. And unknowingly, they would be an instrument in Krishna's hand. And there'll be a nimitta karana, there'll be a visual cause, or they were intoxicated at the fort. And the rascals and the demons and those who are faithless, they will see, oh, Krishna's dynasty got destroyed because they were drunkards. You see? Oh, Krishna left this world, he was shot by the arrow of a hunter, so on and so forth. But Krishna does it to see who will understand the tattva properly and not have any doubt on as to the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. And that's what it means. Chapter 4, text 9. Janma karma chame divyam. My pastimes, my birth is divyam. And those who understand it for what it is, evam yaveti tattvata, for what it is, for what the truthful nature of the pastimes and appearance and disappearance of the Lord is. What happens to those people? Taktva deham punar janmaneti. They don't come back to this earth when they actually, at the end of their lives, they go back to my kingdom. Mahamiti Swarjuna. So that is the nature of and the demons and the rascals, they have so many explanations of this. But the devotees know. Everything is arranged by Krishna's. So we have to be cautious and not to have these doubts, cast in our mind. So the pure devotees also enjoys. Okay. So I think I've made the point. I've read the purport. So text 16. Evang sanchitya bhagavan swarajye sthapya dharmajang nadayanasa suruhidda sadhunang vartadarshayam. Lord Sri Krishna, therefore thinking to himself, established Maharaj Yudhishthira in the position of supreme control of the Lord in order to show the ideal of administration on the path of piety. The whole idea is a Mahabharata Yudh from different angle. Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj as emperor. No more, no less. He wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj as emperor. And Yudhishthira Maharaj was very righteous. He was so righteous that he felt so guilty after the battle of Kurukshetra that so many thousands and thousands and thousands of people have died because I needed to be king. What is this? They couldn't actually pacify Yudhishthira Maharaj after the battle of Kurukshetra. He was impossible to convince to sit on the throne. Every day, different people would counsel him. The elite of the universe were there, sitting down with him, talking with him. Vyasadeva was there. All these different great personalities. Narad Muni would come. Pulastya Rishi would come. Then Parvat Muni will come. And they would counsel him day in, day out. Maharaj, please accept. Maharaj, please accept. He would be inconsolable. And then finally he agreed to go and see Bhishma. And Lord Krishna said, but if Bhishma talks to you, will that be okay? He said, yes. So they go and see Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma counseled him, not only just counseled him and advised him, he also taught him. That episode where Yudhishthira Maharaj goes and sees Bhishma in the Mahabharata, you know what this is called? What parva it is called? What book it is called? Huh? The Mahabharata war, depending on who is in charge, there's a book written according to that. Like when Karna became the commander, it's called the Karna Parva. In the beginning, it's called the Bhishma Parva because Bhishma was in charge as commander. Right? But when the Mahabharata war had finished and Bhishma met Yudhishthira Maharaj and he was passing away, it's called Anushashan Parva, management book. It's called the book of management because the most important thing in that book, in the Anushashan Parva, is Bhishma giving Yudhishthira Maharaj advice about how to be a proper Kshatriya. He talked to him about Stri Dharma, religious duties and principles, governance for women, children, cows, varnashram, brahmana, donation, charity, war, everything. He was taught again by Bhishma. Okay, so he said, so that's why he wanted a proper king. And why? Because he wanted to have a very, very pious person succeed, which was Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj then, by the arrangement of Krishna, listened to Srimad Bhagavatam, which becomes the real jewel in this Sandhya, in this conjunction of the two. We are more or less still in the conjunction of the two yugas, Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga. We are the Sandhya, we are the conjunction of it, right? And at that junction here, still we have Bhagavatam being spoken for us. because of Yudhishthira Maharaj and because of Parikshit Maharaj. Now you can see, you know, a little bit further ahead. Text 17. The embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara. So Uttara was the granddaughter, was a daughter of Maharaj Virata. Abhimanyu was a son of Subhadra and Arjuna, and they were married, and he was a young lad. But she was pregnant, and that embryo was burned by the weapon of the son of Drona, Aswathama, right? But later he was again protected by the Lord. So he was practically burnt black, but the Lord went there and rejuvenated him. So this is the tale also that is being narrated by our dear Uddhava. So the purport, the embryonic body of Parikshit, which was in formation after Uttara's pregnancy by Abhimanyu, the great hero, the son of Subhadra and Arjuna, was burnt by the Brahmastra of Aswathama, but a second body was given by the Lord within the womb. And so you see that purport again. So the Lord personally, even though the seminal body was there, the seminal body that was given by Abhimanyu and grew in the womb of Uttara was there, but a second body was given by the Lord within the womb. That's a very powerful statement. And thus the descendant of Puru was saved. So Krishna personally rearranged a second body for him. Interesting, Rasavan Prabhu?
Very interesting.
We read in between the lines. This incident is a direct proof from that the body and the living entity, the spiritual spark, are different. When the living entity takes shelter in the womb of a woman, through the injection of the semen of a man, there is emulsification of man and woman's discharge, and thus a body is formed. Prabhupada gives that whole explanation in, I think, Wanderings of the Living, I think, third canto itself, yes. I think probably text 27, Understanding Material Nature, or something, chapter 27 or something. You will discuss that at length, or chapter 30, I can't remember. Okay. So gradually, from the size of that pea, gradually developing into a complete body. But if the developing embryo is destroyed in some way or other, the living entity has to take shelter in another body or in the womb of another woman. So if somehow the body is destroyed, the embryonic body is destroyed, then the soul will transmigrate to another body, right? So here it says, the particular living entity who was selected to be the descendant of Maharaj Puru or the Pandavas was not an ordinary jiva, and by the superior will of the Lord, he was destined to be successor to Maharaj Yudhishthira. So everything comes into clarity. Therefore, when Aswathama destroyed the embryo of Maharaj Parikshit, the Lord, by his own internal potency, entered into the womb of Uttara by his plenary portion, just to give audience to the would-be Maharaj Parikshit, who was in great danger. By his appearance within the womb, the Lord encouraged the child and gave him complete protection in a new body by his omnipotency. That is something incredible. So by his power of omnipresence, he was present both inside and outside of Uttara and other members of the Pandava family. Such is also the prayer of Kunti Devi. You remember he said, sometimes I can't understand you. You were inside and then you're suddenly outside in these prayers. And you're referring to Uttara, you know, later on, that is there. So yes, Shalika Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. I was just reflecting on Maharaj Parikshit Maharaj Yudhishthira not being pacified by every other personality that was speaking with him. It was just reflecting in my head. In our spiritual life, I just like most oftentimes the application of this class in our practical devotional life. So sometimes we have practical challenges, practical situations, and then we get devotees talk to us, or we ourselves. Sometimes I personally do this. Then I try to remember some verses in the scriptures that reflects or that counteract that doubt or challenges or problem that is going on in the head. But then sometimes we don't get pacified almost immediately. But sometimes all of a sudden something comes in and then you get satisfied. So I wanted to ask, what are the factors that leads to one being able? Because in this case, Maharaj Yudhishthira could not be pacified. Of course, Krishna is capable of being able to pacify him, but he allowed Maharaj Yudhishthira. So what are those factors that affects us, that gives us that kind of conviction? Because sometimes you see the living entity, sometimes also we hear the Bhagavatam, we hear the scriptures, we hear the holy men talking, we have different persons talking, but we never get convinced. But one person speaks, and just like that, it picks up. So what is the factor that brings about this? Maybe probably you can share something.
Whew. It's a difficult question.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
How come someone gets a very interesting question? How come, like if you take the example of Yudhishthira Maharaj, so many people would talk to him and then he would not be pacified. And then he agrees to go and see Bhishma Dev, and then he said, okay, all right, dear sir, I will accept. So what is it that in our situation also sometimes these things happen, that we are given advice, we are given solace, we are given different things, and then we don't, and then someone else does. It's a very interesting question. I can't put my head around it. Maybe I'm also a bit tired. But interesting question. Anyone wants to add? Let's debate this for a few minutes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. If you look at the situation of Yudhishthira, when many people have tried to persuade him, it's a very exalted personality, and we need a very concrete logic, before he could be convinced. But all these people could not, so he has to himself went to a personality that he respected, and then he believes that whatever the personality opinion or direction he gives him, he has to accept, since it's almost the same thing with the Krishna's desire. That's Krishna's wish. So ultimately, one has to agree with Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Also, I think that Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. So he wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. He wanted everyone to hear him because that was his devotee. He was his devotee. So in that case, we can understand. There is no difficulty in understanding that Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. And he wanted everyone to hear from him before he departs, because he was such a great personality. Even though his one small mistake was that he was more attached to keeping his promise than to being on the right side of things. So but then Kshatriyas were judged by the word of honor. So he would be completely devastated by history if he had not kept his word of honor. So yes, so it's a balance of different things, right? But in our own time, in our own, I think that Krishna's want to increase our faith in a particular set of people or in a particular set of circumstances or different things that are probably unearthers in our heart. And by actually allowing things to move in a certain direction, it probably helps increase our faith, because in the ultimate run, whatever Krishna's situation he arranges for us, some of them we surrender to and some we don't surrender to. if we take it in a positive sense, it is always to increase our faith. Krishna would not do anything to damage our faith in the process, or Krishna would not do anything to actually make us forget him. So we can take it from that side, that if you have, if you see one person has repeatedly caused you to become offensive, or repeatedly caused you to lack faith in certain devotees, like we say like this, right? Like, you know, like this, then obviously Krishna will similarly want to balance by giving you faith in other devotees, or giving you faith in other ways of presentation. So he will not let that be ruined, because we are still influenced by the modes of Rajogun and Tamogun. Whereas if we had come to the platform of Sattvagun, there we would not see such a distinction based on where is the information coming from, or where is it not coming from, because it is a particular quality of the mode of Rajogun where we like to see taste and distaste, likes and dislikes, this person and that person. Whereas in Sattvagun, we see the wisdom of the information, the wisdom of the advice more. So I think you can see it like that, that Krishna is taking care of us, like Prabhu said, but in a more detailed way. What I'm explaining is that we tend to accept it more when we are influenced by the mode of goodness. And mode of goodness means by appreciation. If you approach someone and you have some appreciation for, you will accept. And if you approach someone with a sense of political correctness or judgmentalism or other things, which is a product of the mode of passion, then obviously you will have your own resistance to it. So you can analyze it like that. There's no definitive answer, I think.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you.
So text 18. But it's a very nice things we saw. The burden of love, right? We saw that only Krishna can remove the plenary expansion of his own. Then here we see that Krishna has given Parikshit Maharaj a second body. The other one was burnt out. The other one was a burnt pakora. So he made a new batter and gave a new pakora, you know. so it's like, it's a new thing. So so now very interesting point. And no question of population being a burden. The sinful activities are a burden. The rascal people are a burden. So many points have come up here. Okay, so text 18. Ajayavad dharmasutam aswamedastribir vibhu sopi kshamang anujatrakshang reme krishnam manuvrataha. The Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma, who is Yudhishthira Maharaj, to perform 3 horse sacrifices, Aswamedha Yagyas. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, constantly following Krishna, the personality of God, had protected and enjoyed the earth, assisted by his younger brothers. This is, I explained earlier, right? He sends a challenge horse, and then he makes all the kings under his authority, and they have to follow him. And if they become rascals, he will deal with them. But otherwise, they're happy to work under him. Why? Because if they are attacked by some nonsense king, they will be protected by the emperor. So they also enjoy a very peaceful, happy, kingly life. So they have the protection of the superior king. And that's how I explained this earlier. So therefore, they have the protection of the superior king, plus the superior emperor also protecting them from sinful activities, and they have more prosperity. So everyone is a win-win situation. You see, it's a win-win situation to be under the guardianship of an emperor who is very pious. You get the blessings, you get the nice prosperity, you get protection, and you can live a nice life, and everyone is happy. So you see, this Western culture doesn't have this nonsense thing. You know, it's like when you are under when Prabhupada was here, everyone was happy. Prabhupada was our emperor. Even though ISKCON was small, you know, everyone was happy because, I mean, you know, so like that. If you're under the authority of someone who is completely great personality, pious, peaceful, joyful, happy, can give protection, can give spiritual guidance, everyone is happy. So that's what it is here. The Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma to perform free horse sacrifice. Why? Because he wanted everyone to come under his guardianship, right? Constantly following Krishna, the Supreme Lord, protected and enjoyed the earth. Both protection and enjoyment, prosperity and happiness and security is there. And he was assisted by his younger brothers, right? And you know this story of Hercules? I have a take on this. Do you want to hear?
Yes.
Sahadev and Bhima, they actually conquered Greece. Sahadev and Bhima, they actually conquered Greece. And Bhima, in my speculative mind, was a Hercules. So, so that, because, and different personalities went, like Arjuna, he went all the way up to the northeast of India and further. And those people were beautiful people, and they looked a little bit Chinesey and this and that. So they were part of that, the descendant of Manipur, the descendant of some of the northeastern states, actually descendants of Arjuna. So his brothers went this side, some of the brothers went this side, and so they conquered different parts of the world and get all these provincial kings to be under his care. So I just speculated a bit. Don't quote me. GBC get on my case.
It's good.
So,
it's good sometimes.
Huh?
It's good sometimes to speculate
Yeah.
like that too.
Yeah, to throw some.
But my question is, your speculation is based on what proof?
Yes, exactly.
On what animal?
Exactly. That's why I said speculation. So don't get on my case.
There may be some historical facts, so you can release it to us.
Right. But definitely, Prabhupada, the proof is actually in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada somewhere mentions that Bhima and Sahadev, they actually conquered Greece.
Okay.
That is there. Yeah, I would not that, but the bit about Hercules and Bhima, that was my speculation. That is not Praman. Okay, but definitely they went. And Sahadev was a great horseman, and the Greek were known to be great horsemen. And intelligent management. And Sahadev was a great astrologer, and Sahadev was also a great horseman. And Sahadev was a very intelligent person. So the Greek philosophers and all that, the descendants. So there's a lot more than what I said, speculatively again. So let's stop. So at least we're having some fun. It's our Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, she's our friend, our lover, our master, so we can joke with it a little bit. So text 19. Bhagavan api vishwatma loka veda pathanuga kamam sisev dharvatyam ashakta sankhayavastitah. Simultaneously, the personality of God had enjoyed life in the city of Dwarka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic wisdom of society. He was situated, so the personality of God enjoyed life in the city of Dwarka, strictly in conformity with Vedic customs of society. He was situated in detachment and knowledge. Ashakta Sankham Ashtita. So Ashakta means detachment, and Sankham means knowledge. Astita, established. So he was situated in detachment and knowledge as enunciated by the Sankhya philosophy, system of philosophy. So let's see, it's a beautiful verse. So Krishna was always established in detail and understanding of application of the philosophy. That's why the idea of Sankhya is being presented here. And it is enunciated that he also had lots of detachment, Ashakta. He was detached. He had all these women all these kings, but he was detached. They were more attracted to him than he was attracted to them. So let us hear the purport. Anyone can read the purport?
Purport. While Maharaj Yudhishthira was the emperor of the heart, Lord Sri Krishna was the king of Dwaraka and was known as Dwarakadisha. Like other subordinate kings, he was under the reigns of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Although Lord Sri Krishna is the supreme personality of God, the supreme emperor of the entire creation, while he was on this earth, he never violated the principles of the Vedic injunctions because they are the guide for human life. Regulated human life according to the Vedic principles, which are based on the system of knowledge called Sankhya philosophy, is the real way of enjoyment of the necessities of life. Without such knowledge, detachment, and customs, the so-called human civilization is no more than an animal society of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. The Lord was acting freely as he willed, yet by his practical example, he taught not to lead a life which goes against the principles of detachment and knowledge. Attainment of knowledge and detachment, as very elaborately discussed in Sankhya philosophy, is the real perfection of life. Knowledge means to know that the mission of the human form of life is to end all the miseries of material existence. And that, in spite of having to fulfill the bodily necessity in a regulated way, one must be detached from such animal life. Fulfilling the demands of the body is animal life, and fulfilling the mission of the spirit soul is the human mission.
It was very basic philosophy, put in a nice way. If you go read again, detail, you can see a lot of beautiful things. So he said that the Lord was always acting freely, and even though the Lord is the source of all knowledge, and the source is the Lord is the source of all detachment, ashakta. Here he follows the rules of detachment and he follows the rules of knowledge because he wants to set the example. Just like Krishna says, if I don't perform my duties, the whole world will go to ruination in Bhagavad Gita. So why does Krishna does that? So that he sets a right example. He sets a right example. So whenever there is anything of offensive nature, anything is not right, he actually follows the rules of Vedic system, Vedic culture, Vedic knowledge to actually make sure that everyone is aligned properly. So Prabhupada is saying knowledge means knowing the mission of life. So this knowledge of Sankhya, which is 9 chapters, is starting from chapter 25, the principles of devotional service, and going on to fundamental principles of material nature, wanderings of the living entities, understanding material nature, and goes on teaching Lord Kapila. All these 9 chapters we will discuss in the last part of, not me, but you will discuss with your teachers. Very interesting Sankhya philosophy, which is devotional Sankhya, which is basically devotional service, but understanding devotional service in material nature. Which is slightly different to understanding rasas and devotional service, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Whereas here, Sankhya means detailed understanding of how to practice devotional service, understanding the implications of different modes of material nature upon, activities of the individuals in devotional service. So that is detailed explanation of devotional service. So it is like trying to understand devotional service in material nature, within the influence of material nature, which is Sankhya philosophy. So it's all together. So this is explained from chapter 25 on to chapter 33 of this canto, teachings of Lord Kapila. So Prabhupada talks about that here. Text 20. Snigdha smitavalokena Vachapiyusakalpaya Charitredana Vadyena Shriniketana Chatmanaha. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarine word, and his flawless character. So the Lord, in his transcendental body, he resided there. Very beautiful, gentle, and sweet smiling face. Krishna is always smiling and very sweet. And his nectarine words and his flawless character. So we go to text 21. Imam lokam amum chaiva ramayan sutarang yadun reme kshanadhaya datta kshanastri kshanasodhrida. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes, both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets also, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. So he was having a enjoyable pastimes with those devotees and those demigods who wanted to be with him in his pastimes. So he was giving this opportunity. And finally, from there on, they'll go back to Godhead or some other sevas and services. So at leisure hours offered at night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women, which were his consorts and his wives. But the Lord enjoyed in this world with pure devotees. Although he is a personality of God and is transcendental to all material attachment, he nevertheless exhibited much attachment for his pure devotees on the earth, as well as for the demigods who engage in his service in the heavenly planets as powerful delegated directors in the management of all material activities. So he gave them opportunities to be with him in his pastimes. So he displayed special attachment for his family members, the Yadus, as well as for his 16,000 wives. So he was there in conjugal life in the leisure hours of night with his consorts, with his wives. All these attachments of the Lord are manifestation, but we have to understand that they're not manifestation of Prakriti, material nature. They're manifestation of his internal potencies, Yoga Maya. Okay. So in the Skanda Puran, Prabhasha Khand, in the topics between Lord Shiva and Gauri, Mother Parvati, there's confirmation of his internal potential manifestations. There is mention of the Lord's meeting with 16,000 cowherd damsels, although he is a Hamsa avatar, super soul, transcendental maintainer of all living beings. The 16,000 cowherd damsels are a display of 16 varieties of internal potencies. This will be more elaborately explained in the 10th canto, so we'll have to wait for that. It is said that the Lord is just like the moon, and the internal potential damsel like the stars around the moon. So you can go into deep study and analyze these things. We have a few more verses. So text 22. I will just read the verses. I'm getting a bit tired too. Yesterday I had 2 classes, 6 hours, and then yesterday also. So the Lord was just engaged in household life for many, many years, but at last his detachment from the ephemeral sex life was fully manifested. So let's read this purport. Even though the Lord is never attached to any kind of material sex life, as a universal teacher, he remained a householder for many, many years, just to teach others how one should live in householder life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the word samajayata means fully exhibited. So in all his activities while present on the earth, the Lord exhibited detachment. This was fully displayed when he wanted to teach by example that one should not remain attached to householder life for all the days of one's life. Generally, our rule is 50 years you go out, but it's always, unsure in Kali Yuga. So one should naturally develop detachment as a matter of course. The Lord's detachment from household life does not indicate detachment from his eternal associates, the transcendental cowherd damsels, which are the gopis. But the Lord desired to end his so-called attachment to the free modes of material. He was never attached to the free modes. He can never be detached from the service of transcendental associates like Rukmini and other goddesses of fortune because they are there. I just want to go back to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and understand this here. Let me see if there is anything and I'll share with you. 22.
Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sangama Siddhinanam.
So here it is saying, enjoying in this way with his queens. Let me. So Vishwanath is saying like this, enjoying in this way with his queens, he showed complete detachment from the activities of the householder. Though following the rules of karma yoga continuously for many years, Krishna showed complete samajata, indifference, viraga to the path of karma typified by Rajagun in performing household activities, and to the enjoyable items offered by such household persons, which means women, family, children, food, and etc. This continued at all times, but at this time it became very evident. Guneshwara Shanga Vairagyam. Detachment means no association with the gunas. Because of this definition, there's no question of such attachment in his pastimes with Rukmini and others, which are Shuddha Sattva, beyond the material gunas. So these activities are in transcendental modes. Yeah? So even the Lord, conjugal life is considered to be Shuddha Sattva because they are within the purview of material, of internal potency of the Lord. So he's never attached to any kind of material sex life. So understanding the Lord's sex life is not an easy thing for any of us. So I will not venture into this. But when you can read and understand it as we go along. So so free 23. Devadhineshu kameshu devadhina swayam pumam ko vishrambheta yogena yogeshwara anuvrata. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental. No one, therefore, can put his faith in Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. So it's a very profound statement here. And this is the translation of Prabhupada too. So what to speak of the Lord, knowing himself to be a jiva, subject to the control of karma, surrendering to the Lord in Bhakti Yoga, will have faith in material objects and desires which produce karma. So we cannot actually understand this. That's what he's saying here. How can we put faith in understanding these things? It's impossible for us. Okay, so in the purport, let me move out of this, stop share. In the purport here, you read, I stated in Gita, no one can understand the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord. The same fact is here corroborated. No one but who is enlightened by the devotional service of the Lord can understand the difference between the Lord's activities and those of others. So what it is saying here, that we can try to understand or extrapolate the activities of the Lord in his conjugal matters by comparing to our own. That's the only thing we can go by, right? Or do you have some others? So that's what it is saying here. So it is saying the same fact is here corroborated. No one but who is enlightened by the devotional service of the Lord can understand the difference between the Lord activities and those of others who are controlled by a supernatural force. The sense enjoyment of all animals, men, and demigods within the purview of material universe is controlled by the supernatural force called Deva Maya, Prakriti, material nature. No one is independent in obtaining sense enjoyment. That is, we obtain sense enjoyment through this Prakriti, through Devi Maya. Our senses are within the purview of Devi Maya. So it's a persons who are themselves under the control of supernatural power, which is Devi Maya, cannot believe that Lord Krishna is not under the control beyond himself in the matter of sense enjoyment. So the Lord's sense enjoyment is difficult for us to understand. So, like, for example, if you go to chapter 13, and text 23 of Bhagavad Gita, it says 5 functions of the Lord in the heart: Upadrushta, Anumantas, Bharata, Bhokta, Maheshwara. How is the Lord Bhokta in your body? What does he enjoy in your body? He says, Paramatmiti chapi yukto, Dehesvin Purushapara. So he's Paramatma within the heart. So he's master, we can understand. He's Upadrushta, he's overseer, we can understand. And he's Anumanta, he allows things to happen. He's a coordinator between the Adideva, Adi Yagya, Adi Bhuta. We can understand that to a point. He corroborates the free agencies with you, body, and the demigods, and allowing things to happen. Okay. But how is he the enjoyer within your body? What will he enjoy with your senses? Interesting. So how is he Bhokta? How is the Lord Bhokta? As Paramatma is in the body, how is he Bhokta? Is when we allow our senses to serve him. He becomes the master of our senses. So when our activities are for his pleasure, like we are eating, but we are eating prasadam and honoring prasadam, then the Lord enjoys that service to him, because our senses are meant for dual purpose. Our senses has the ability to help us enjoy. So I eat food and I enjoy. My senses for me, I enjoy. My senses for the Lord's service, the Lord enjoys. So will the Lord enjoy our eating as Bhakta? Yes, if it is prasadam and we are honoring it. Will the Lord enjoy my sex life? Yes, if it is in procreation for a Krishna conscious child. So that's why it is said that the Lord has legs, hands, feet everywhere. They are our hands, feet, our senses. Bhakti has an ability to manifest on our senses when we let it. So that's the understanding. So the Lord has his own senses and his own enjoyment. But as Paramatma within our body, he can enjoy if we let him. But if we want to enjoy, well, how will he compete with you to enjoy? You follow this point?
Yeah.
Yes.
But you were referencing, you were referencing somewhere in Bhagavad Gita. Is that chapter 18 you're referencing?
Chapter 13, text 23.
Okay, 23.
Upadushtanumantascha bharta bhukta maheshwaram paramatmeti chapi yukto dehesmin purusha para. Okay, 5 functions of that. So that's how we understand it. So we can let the Lord be enjoyer in our body, and we can be his servant, and our senses be in his service, and he becomes bhokta. Otherwise, while we enjoy our remnants, right? We enjoy his remnants. So let me go to text 24. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasty. And thus, as desired by the Lord, the sages cursed them. So this is the pastime of Samba and so on. So please read the rest. If you have some points, we can ask some questions. I will stop on time and read the rest of it here. And I will just recap it when I start the class tomorrow. And we'll make these points, and then we will carry on with chapter. Well, how many chapters I have to do, Shalika?
Chapters. Okay, let me just check from the.
Up to chapter
no.
8, right?
Yes, in chapter 8. We are doing 8 and unit 8, unit 8 and 9.
Unit 8 is up to chapter 4.
Yeah. Just a minute, I'm checking.
Yeah, I remember.
Unit. Just a second, sorry. Okay, unit 9. You have to chapter 8, yes, because
Yes, okay.
unit. Yes, chapter 8.
All right.
Unit 9. Start to it.
Okay, so then we have to also look at the assignments.
Yeah, at the end of the chapter 4, then we'll
Yes.
do the exam.
So when we finish unit 8, then we'll discuss about your assignments, and you'll have to make presentations and whatever. All right, thank you so much. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shishinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Please, again, my humble plea to all of you is stay fixed, put your camera on a tripod, and don't have flickering lights. It gives headaches. Thank you so much. Panchakalpatarivascha. Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanang Pavani Vaishnavyo Namo Namo. Gaura Bhakti Vrinda ki jai.
Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu ki jai.